What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Tuesday, June 28th. Lucas and Tyler hanging out with you tonight. Tyler, how's it going, my man?
Man, it's good to be back in the cities after a nice little rendezvous out to the nice little town of Duluth, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it was, hey, look, I know we try to say we don't talk about the weather on this podcast, but I gotta say, the weather the past couple days in Duluth, absolutely beautiful,
I believe that.
beautiful.
It was beautiful around here in the cities, in the middle of all these stinking towers. But I can only imagine what it was like in Duluth.
You got a nice little breeze because you're right off of Lake Superior, and yeah, it was a grand old time, and a nice little happy birthday shout out to none other than Matthew.
Happy birthday, Brother Plath.
Brother Plath.
There
we go. But yeah, it was a nice little trip out, and I'm happy to be back. It was a little weird though because it's a Tuesday currently, right? It's going to throw my whole week off. I'm just going to say it. It's just going to throw my entire week off. But you know what? We'll make it through. We're talking fantasy football now.
I'm always happy with that. Cameron isn't with us tonight.
Shocker.
Once again, just decided that. I don't know. Like, is he part of the podcast at this point?
He doesn't think we're bold enough in our takes, and so he said, you know what, I'm taking this solo.
Yeah, you can go check out Cameron's podcast. I will never outperform the Fantasy Football Fellas, wherever you get your podcast from. Cameron, we love you. We miss you. Come back soon. He's got a full agenda. He's got a full agenda here. So watch. It'll be me who won't be here next week, and that won't surprise me when that happens.
I mean, that's just our luck. Is that
it's our luck?
You know, the lead up will be, oh, we can all make it, or we can all do it together, and then someone's gonna message. Just kidding.
Not me.
Not this week.
It won't be me this week. Well, we got a good episode coming up for you today. We are doing another divisional breakdown. We are bringing you the NFC North this week. This is our beloved division. As Minnesota Vikings fans, we could talk about the NFC North all day long if we wanted to. So we are looking forward to breaking that down for you. We got some news and notes to kick off the podcast, and ties back with another hot take per every divisional breakdown episode. Tyler will have a hot take. We're looking forward to that. So, you know what? Let's just dive into it so we can get to talking the NFC North here. Let's cover some news and notes quick. I was listening back to the insert transition, and I kind of hate it. So I'm sure everybody else hates it. I kind of hate it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice little joke, but we'll spare
we ran it dead. We ran it dead.
we
ran it dead. Simple as that. News and notes from around the league. Not much to cover since last week's episode, surprisingly. New today, though, Terry McLaurin, 3-year extension with the Washington Commanders, worth up to $71 million. You knew this was going to happen. You knew he was going to get his money. I mean, does this mean... I hate asking the question, does signing a contract mean anything for a player? But, I don't know. I don't feel any different about Terry after this contract.
No, I'm seeing so many people say, well, this extension just kills his fantasy outlook for the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. The man was, I mean, well, I'll be gracious and I'll say high-end flex because I know people are not going to agree with the low-end wide receiver too. I know they won't agree with it, but that's just what it was. With Tyler Heineke.
Taylor.
He has... Did I say Tyler? Sorry, I'm just
it's your name.
Sometimes.
Just you were on the field. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. No, but Heineke was his quarterback. Now he has Wentz. I mean, who knows? It might not even work out next year. And next year in the draft, they take a quarterback first round.
They could be in the running for a Bryce Young. I mean, he'll probably go first overall, but CJ Stroud.
Another Ohio State quarterback goes to die.
I know. I just throw him
Washington.
in here. I would no. I mean, I hate all Ohio State quarterbacks when they come out because none of them have been good in the NFL. But alas, he'd be a name to throw in there.
Right. I just think the point with Terry McLaurin is that this neither hurts nor helps him. He's still going to be a mid to low end wide receiver too. That's just it.
That is the story. That is all you need to know about this contract signing. He got his money. He's going to play this year. He's a mid to low wide receiver too. 100% agree. Alvin Kamara bracing for a 6-game suspension. This is a big blow to fantasy owners, fantasy managers, fantasy players. I think we were all expecting like a 4-game suspension. You throw 6 on top of there, like Alvin Kamara, he was going at like running back 9 in drafts currently, which for missing 4 games was a little bit rich for me. But now he misses 6. How much do you think this impacts his value going into the season? And this isn't confirmed. He's bracing for 6. But, I mean, if that's what the player is expecting, I can only imagine the NFL is probably going to meet that once a report comes out about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the 6-game suspension is the minimum for – I mean, there are multiple kinds of charges that a player could get that results in a minimum 6-game suspension.
Yep.
Battery is one of them. And the player then has the ability to negotiate his way down or negotiate his suspension down. So there still is a possibility he only does get 4 games. But until then, when you hear news like this, that he's bracing for a 6-game suspension, doesn't make you feel too great about, in Dynasty, if you already got him or you're doing startup drafts or whatever, right? Like even like best ball, it doesn't sit well because
no, it doesn't even sit well for best ball. No,
because he's still going top 12 running backs, and now that's at least a little less than half of his season potentially gone in suspension. Now it becomes a challenge where you find or you give him a decent enough maybe not decent, respectful ranking, right? Because what kind of situation he comes back to after a suspension, but how, you don't want to waste super high capital on him. No. You don't want to wait too long because he won't be there. So now it's just trying to find where he belongs in rankings and stuff.
It feels similar to Zeke back in 2016. Right, where he had his suspension. Was his 6 or 4? I think his was 6.
I thought his was more like half the season. Maybe
either
6,
way.
So
either way, it feels a lot like Zeke in 2016, right? Where all of a sudden you're going to be able to get him mid-4th round, and he's probably going to pay off for you later in the season. But man, you're sitting on that for a while. So look, I don't think he can be drafted top 10 anymore. I think he becomes borderline top 20. I mean, when you miss the third of a season, like that's not a guy I can take in the top 20 picks, top 30 picks, really even. First 3 rounds, I don't want to touch him. So, yeah, that's tough. That's tough for Kamara's fantasy value. Yeah, if it indeed is a 6-game suspension, that'd be tough. Speaking of missing more time, Bucks beat. Wouldn't be surprised if Chris Godwin starts the season on the PUP list. Hey, that's not good news. I was expecting 4 again. This is another Kamara. I was expecting 4. Now we're talking 6. If he lands on the PUP list prior to the season, it's at least 6. Not 2 more after that. But you got to think with Chris Godwin's timeline, 6 would be enough games.
You would think, but I think at the same time, it may just be a little on the conservative side in terms of getting him back because I think Tampa projects to be a very, very good team in the regular season, that they don't need Chris Godwin to rush back.
Right.
So I can see the hesitancy, right? Because you're just like, oh, that does, it does kind of hurt fantasy, value. But from an NFL perspective, you're like, actually, that kind of, I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, you want to see him on the field, but it makes sense that you don't have to rush him back.
100%. Yeah, and that's not a guy you want to rush back after the money you paid him last year. That's not a guy you want to rush back and re-injure again. So, from a fantasy perspective, obviously we grown. From a long-term perspective, it's definitely probably the right thing. And if he does land on the pup list, obviously his ADP will fluctuate accordingly. It'll be like Kamara. All of a sudden, we're not looking at him in the 4th round anymore. We're probably looking 6th, 7th, 8th round at a Chris Godwin if he's missing a third of the season or more. But those were really only the 3 big pieces of news from the last week. Is there anything that I missed? I don't think there was anything else that really happened.
No. I mean, this is the I don't want to call it the dead zone, but there was this dead zone between the draft and mini camps, and now we've hit stage 2 between mini camps and training camp.
Yep, definitely agree. And soon we'll have plenty of beat reporters coming out and giving us all the juicy reports that we need to spread false hope on. So
yeah, all the team beat writers and all the anonymous beat writers,
all of them, they're going to team up and they're going to give us all the goods. Let's move on to our NFC North divisional breakdown, starting with hot take Ty. Tyler, what is your hot take this week for the NFC North?
So, last week our hot take was a little on the favorable side, you could say, for Mr. Rashad Bateman.
I agree.
Thought about going a little on the negative side this week, but decided against it because we will be talking about a player that us fellas are very much in on this year and are very high on. That is Mr. DeAndre Swift, running back for the Detroit Lions.
Yes.
Hot take of the episode. I'm looking directly into the camera for this one.
You can look down. You're slightly above.
Oh, shoot. There we go.
There you go.
DeAndre Swift will finish as a top 3 running back in fantasy football this year.
That's what I'm talking about.
Could have said 1. That was a little rich.
Can I go super hot take, Lucas? Because I would say he's going to finish as the running back 1 overall. That's as far as I would go. But I'm not hot take Ty. I'm just super hot take Lucas. Which
there are players named Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey.
Number 1. Swift's better than all of them. Who are we kidding?
Okay. I expect to see this happen in a new league draft starting soon. I expect to see that out of you if you have the number 1 pick.
I'll just mock you. I'll sit in a mock with you, and I'll get the number 1 pick. I'll do it there. I'll put my money where my mouth is, and then we don't have to look.
Forget drafting value, right? Because he's wide or the running back 8 right now at his ADP. Forget value. Just go get your guy. Go get your guy.
You believe in him, go get him. We'll get to DeAndre Swift eventually in the AFC North breakdown, but we're going to start with the Chicago Bears first, and we're going to start with second-year quarterback Justin Fields. Interesting prospect this year. Been some reports out of camp saying his footwork and mechanics have looked a bit better. Great. I don't really care until you actually put him in full motion game action to see how Fields performs. I'm not really interested in him unless if it's like Superflex 2 quarterback leagues. I have him at quarterback 16. Cameron has him at quarterback 18. But Tyler, you have him at quarterback 23. What keeps him outside of your top 20 quarterbacks this year? Because at that point in Superflex, if you're in a 12-man league, that's borderline starter in a Superflex. You may not even be starting Justin Fields on a given week.
Let's take a look at the last 3 years and all the quarterbacks that have had a new head coach / system in their sophomore year. Justin Herbert in 2020, drafted by the Chargers. Head coach that year, it was Anthony Lynn. He finished as a QB9. Respectable. Last year, new coach and Brandon Staley, he finished as the quarterback 2. Okay.
Very respectable.
Very, very respectable. 2019 was the year Daniel Jones got drafted by the Giants. His rookie head coach was Pat Shurmur. He finished as a QB 23 that year. His sophomore year was the first year of Joe Judge. and he finished as quarterback 24 that year.
Barf.
2018, we've got 2 quarterbacks from this draft. Let's first start with Baker Mayfield. Rookie head coach Hugh Jackson got fired in the middle of the season, if you remember that.
Hey.
Following year, his coach was none other than Freddie Kitchens.
Good old Freddie Kitchens.
Good old Freddie Kitchens. Baker finished his rookie year as a quarterback 16, which is pretty modest, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
2019 with Freddie Kitchens, he finished as a quarterback 19. So he took a step back in terms of fantasy production.
Yep.
The other quarterback from 2018 was Sam Darnold.
Oh, the man himself.
The man himself who saw ghosts on the football field. Sam Darnold, his rookie head coach was Todd Bowles, believe it or not. And Darnold finished as a quarterback 27 that year. Following year, the Jets hired none other than Adam Gase. Mr.
I'm
Career
so glad
Destroyer.
he doesn't have a job. I can't. I shouldn't say that. I'm just Adam Gase. What a guy.
Well, I mean, being Minnesota sports fans, if we ever say like, I'm so glad this guy doesn't have a job, the Vikings will then bring him in for a job, right. And it's going to be, not ideal. But that year, Sam Darnold finished as a quarterback 27. So 0 change in how he finished. Yeah. I mentioned those 4 names because I've got a question for you now.
Okay.
Would you put Justin Fields in the same kind of category of quarterbacks like Justin Herbert who can take a leap in his sophomore year?
No, I won't defend myself, but the answer is no.
Let me then group the next 3 because I think I know your answer. Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold. Do you think Justin Fields is more like them in terms of sophomore leaps?
I think it's far in terms of their talent and draft capital. I think that's far more likely.
So I get last year that Justin Fields didn't play a full season. He finished as a quarterback 31 last year, and now that he's going to get a full season, obviously he's going to finish higher than he did last year, right?
That's a given.
That's just how it's going to be. But from what I, researched and all that, with Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold not able to improve in fantasy with similar talents, I'll just say it, with similar talents as Justin Fields, I'm not expecting a top 20 finish from him. And I think, honestly, like before today, I had him a little bit lower than 23, like all the way down at 27. I like the only upside that he has is rushing. And he has athleticism and he has speed to be a decent quarterback or a rushing quarterback. But the system that they're bringing in is not tailored to a rushing quarterback.
That's
so fair. So for me, all that to say, Justin Fields, like in Dynasty, I can absolutely understand. Maybe not where he's being taken, but I can understand the intrigue to Fields because he's just a super young quarterback. But when it comes to redraft, he should be nowhere near your roster. He should stay on waivers for, dare I say, the entire season.
Ooh, rough.
Unless there
not
is
even
some
a streamer option.
I wouldn't even give him that because he's got 0. I mean, Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet are his only weapons. He's got no offensive line. So to take the pressure off of a sophomore quarterback who did not have the greatest rookie year, they're going to run the ball.
Yeah.
I don't buy into Fields at all this year, and I'm way out. And maybe 23 right now where I have him is a little harsh. Like I said, I'm out. I can't invest in him this year.
I mean, I don't plan on investing in him, but like I think his rushing upside does give him some saving grace. Like I only have him for 3,500 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Like he gets nothing done with his arm. But then when I go and I look at his rushing upside, 136 attempts for 788 and 4 touchdowns. That might be a little bit generous and a little bit hopeful. But I think the thing that does separate Justin Fields from a lot of the guys you mentioned is that he is much more of a mobile quarterback. And he's much more effective with his legs playmaking than he is with his arm. And I think that's kind of it's one of those where he's like, if he had, oh my goodness, I'm going to needed to get that out. I didn't want to mute myself. It's just like I needed to make it obvious I was having issues with my chest right there. Like even if he has like a Walmart minus Jalen Hurts season. I say Walmart minus because I need to like dock it further than just a Walmart, right? But like that's going to be Justin Fields' saving grace is his rushing upside this year. So for that alone, I'm willing to make him my quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues, but I'm not touching him in single quarterback leagues. Like you said, he's a streaming option at best in single quarterback leagues. I would agree with you there. Let's keep it moving. We got a lot of players to cover here, and we spent a lot of time on Justin Fields, but it was needed.
Sorry.
It was needed to explain. No, it was good. It was needed. It was needed. David Montgomery, I think I can kind of summarize this a little bit. I mean, you said yourself, Chicago's going to want to take the ball out of Justin Fields' hands if they can afford to and run the football. Right. I'm shocked. Did you move David Montgomery up in your rankings? Because I've had him at 13 for the longest time.
I did. I had him at 17, I want to say. And then I looked at it and I said, okay, would I rather have David Montgomery or let's see some other guys? Oh, like Nick Chubb or Javonte Williams or James Conner. And I'm like, I kind of lean Montgomery, honestly.
I love Monty. We've talked about him in previous podcasts recently. I don't have him statted out for anything absurd, I don't think. 255 attempts for 1,020 yards. That's literally 4 yards a carry. Like, that's nothing special. 8 touchdowns. Okay, he scored 6, 7, and 8 touchdowns in his career. Only played 13 games last year, scored 7 touchdowns, so I don't think 8 is unreasonable whatsoever. Receiving 55 receptions, 65 targets, 401 yards, and a touchdown there. First pushback point, 255 attempts, Khalil Herbert is there. If you think 255 attempts is like way too high for Monty, his 17-game pace last year was 274, and his 17-game pace in 2019 was 294. Like, the man was getting absurd volume. I am allowing there to be 20 to 40 touches delegated to Khalil Herbert this year, okay? I'm not making light of that. Like, Khalil Herbert is a thing, but I don't think he's the thing. The only thing I could see myself being a bit generous on is his targets. His 17-game base last year was 66 targets, 77 in 2019, though. So that's one where I'm like, I think it'll probably stay around the same. Justin Fields did target him. I believe he had 2 games of 5 or more targets with Justin Fields when they were on the field together last year. So Justin Fields will dump it off. I get Khalil Herbert's a nice piece, and I get Luke Getsy coming from Green Bay doesn't give you like Monty workhorse vibes with how they've been shifting around their backfield the past couple of years. But like, outside of his targets, I feel like I have Monty statted pretty appropriately, pretty modestly for the most part. So I get Khalil and Justin Fields are going to take rushing attempts, but like, Monty's the running back one there. We can't get that twisted whatsoever. He's the running back one there. He will get volume. He will get his touches. I'm confident in him as a top 15 play this year. Lock it and load it. I'm a big fan of Monty this year. Darnell Mooney. I don't know. Did you want to add anything else in there before we move on?
You nailed it.
Excellent. Perfect. Darnell Mooney. Wide receiver 29 for me, wide receiver 33 for you, 32 for Cameron. I've been seeing a ton of Darnell Mooney hype on really all socials recently. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen it on Instagram. I've seen it everywhere from fantasy pages. I get it, right? No more A-Rob, right? This team will have to pass the ball a ton because their defense got significantly worse this offseason. Oh my goodness, Siri. Shut up, Siri. I don't know if you could hear that.
Just a tad, maybe just a little bit.
Absurd. We're getting really derailed this episode. Mooney hype. I get it. No way, Rob. Gonna be passing the ball a lot. That defense got worse this offseason. But he barely makes my top 30, and he's outside of both you and Cameron's top 30s. Why in the world is that? Why are we not expecting this top 20, top 15 finish for Darnell Mooney this year?
I think it comes back to Justin Fields. I really think this offense is going to go through David Montgomery, whether we like it or not. It just will. And when it gets into the red zone, I'm expecting a lot of red zone targets for a bigger body like Cole Kmet, or they're going to rush into with Montgomery. There will be times where, Mooney gets targeted in the red zone, but I just don't expect this. Maybe the best way to put it, I just don't expect a whole lot from this offense this year. Like the Bears the Bears should have a top 5 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
They really should. Like it's going to be a really, really bad season for the Bears.
They took so many more steps backwards than they did forwards this offseason. And I understand Mooney is going to be the guy there now. I don't buy it. I just don't see the touchdowns. I have him statted out for 145 targets. I have him getting volume, but there's just too many guys ahead of him I would rather have with far more upside that can make up for disgusting volume and lack of touchdowns. Right. That's where I'm at with Mooney. So I get it. I get if you want to be in on Mooney. I think he's priced appropriately in this range of 29-30. That's about where he's going in drafts. I think this is the perfect spot for him. I wouldn't draft him any higher than this. I just don't think his ceiling could be top 25, but 23, 24, not 18, 19. I just don't see him climbing into that top 20 this year. There's too many other talented wide receivers out there in better offenses.
I think it just came to my mind really. He's kind of Brandon Cooks light-ish, I guess. Not necessarily by
light.
Light. Not necessarily by style of play or anything. But Mooney is very much the lone wide receiver for an inexperienced quarterback.
Right.
Except the difference between Cooks and Mooney is that just their offenses are going to be very, very different.
Yep. They are going to be different. 100% agree there. Let's move on to a guy you actually just brought up, Cole Kmet, to wrap out the Bears. I think this might surprise a lot of people. I've got him as my tight end 10. You have him as your tight end 10. Even Cameron agrees with us. Has him as his tight end 9. That I was surprised he was that high on Cole Kmet. I'm not. I saw that and I was like, my goodness. I expected Cameron to have him at 17 or something because I think we all agree tight ends aren't his forte.
Well, not necessarily his forte. He just doesn't give them the light of day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. I agree. Kmet's probably our favorite sleeper tight end. Is he not? Zach Ertz, I feel like is still going in the top 10. Where I feel like he's our favorite late round value tight end. Sleeper wise, Cole Kmet is my favorite sleeper tight end by far, by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Look, he's not this brilliant, flashy talent or anything, right? But there's always one tight end every year that sneaks their way into the tight end, and I think that's Cole Kmet this year. The man was 9th in tight end targets last year. That's a great start. When you have a young quarterback who is targeting his tight end at a high frequency, that's a good sign. And so I mean, again, Fields and Fields and Andy Dalton. I only put Dalton in my notes. Fields and Andy Dalton were. I saw Dalton. I just immediately went to Dalton Schultz, tight end. We'll talk about Dalton
NFC East switch up.
Yeah, again, it feels like we're representing the NFC East a lot. Man was 9th in tight end targets last year. Okay, no more Jimmy Graham stealing touchdowns from him. All right, that's going to be huge for Kmet. He scores even 4 touchdowns, creeps up into that top 10 range, right? Just one of those guys. He's going to disgusting volume his way into a top 10 tight end finish. You're not going to love rostering him, but he's one of those guys where you'll pick him up like mid-season and you're like, yeah, that was a great pickup this year. And he's a top 10 tight end without even knowing it. So yeah. Anything you want to add onto that? I think those were kind of the big tipping points for.
I want to
Mr.
talk
Kmet.
about DeAndre Swift, so let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, we'll keep it rolling. DeAndre Swift, all right. Switch to the Detroit Lions here. He's our running back 7 across the board for all three of us. Look, we love DeAndre Swift this year. It is no secret. We're going to continue pushing that bandwagon towards like running back 1 upside, right? Overall running back 1 upside. I'll just ask you. I'll literally set it on the tee for you, and you can just knock it out of the park. What makes us so in on DeAndre Swift this year?
I think we need to take a look at a 17-game pace season or 2021 season for DeAndre Swift because
17-game pace, 100. Yep, that's where we need to start.
Because the man he would have finished with 200 carries, give or take like 3 carries, a little over 800 yards, give or take maybe 6 yards.
Yeah.
And 6 rushing touchdowns. Okay.
I like that.
That's a relatively solid rushing line. Maybe the yards could have been a little bit better, but he makes up for it with his receiving stats because the man would have finished with 81 catches, over 100 targets, and 2 touchdowns. And we didn't even put in the yards that come with that.
102 targets is enough for me. I don't even want the yards in there at that point. If you're getting over 100 targets, you look at Alvin Kamara, you look at Saquon Barkley, you look at Christian McCaffrey, those kind of guys who have gotten over 100 targets in a season, top 3, hands down.
Austin Eckler.
Austin, thank you. He had 94 last season.
But close enough.
Close enough. Top 3. You get that kind of receiving volume, that's priceless in fantasy. And people will say, well, they brought in Jameson Williams. They brought in DJ Chark. Wide receiver targets are not running back targets. We cannot get that twisted. The quality, the purpose of a wide receiver pass compared to a running back dump off, a running back screen are 2 totally different things. We cannot get that twisted. I feel like that, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on to that statement. I feel like there's more context that I'm missing there. But the targets are not equal. They are not the same. They don't necessarily take away from one another unless if it's a wide receiver leaving a team. Wide receivers coming to a team don't really impact running back targets.
No, I think we just need to create a new mantra. All targets are not created equal.
That's the phrase I was looking for. Thank you. Kept trying to word my way to the phrase and I couldn't find it. All targets are not created equal. That's the case with DeAndre Swift. And because of that, I know people say, well, Jamal
DJ
Williams
Chark
cuts into his upside. I was Jamal Williams. I was thinking cuts into his upside. Yeah. No. I understand split backfield, but if you're splitting your backfield and you get 197 carries, you want to know who else was splitting backfields last year? Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, who both finished right around top 15 running back, and they had nowhere near the receiving work that DeAndre Swift does. Leonard Fournette, 180 carries last year. You don't need 200 plus carries to be a top 5 guy. You just don't. If you get the receiving work, it makes up for it. And DeAndre Swift will make up for it. I guarantee it. I promise you. Draft DeAndre Swift at all costs. Do it. Not at the 101 or 102 or 103, but anytime after that, do it. Do it. Let's talk TJ Hawkinson. Tight end 7 for me, tight end 8 for you, tight end 7. I feel like this is just the appropriate range for Hawk, and I'm just going to kind of I'm not even going to provide any statistical evidence here. I'm just going to reason our way to TJ Hawkinson being a tight end 7. And I think it just makes sense. It makes sense. He's going to be a top tight end option this year. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Okay. He's going to be a good tight end option this year. But we have Kelsey. We have Andrews. We have Waller. We have Kittle. We have Pitts. There's 5 right there that I think we are all very confident will finish ahead of TJ Hawkinson this year. Dalton Schultz is the dark horse here, the mixed bag kind of guy, right? Where does he fit into this, right? I think we all agree. All of us are in on Dalton Schultz. Amari Cooper's out of town, right? He had a top 5 tight end season last year. Dalton Schultz, he's probably going to finish there again this year. There's no reason why he can't. So that puts him above Hawk for me. I look at everyone else. I don't know. You could look at Zach Ertz. Like, I get if you want to put Zach Ertz above him. Dallas Goedert. I think with AJ Brown in town, I'm not too worried about him trying or surpassing TJ Hawkinson this year. And then you get to the Komets, the Muth, the Dawson Knox, the Gesicki's. I want none of those guys over TJ Hawkinson, right? I just reasoned our way without statistical evidence to why TJ Hawkinson just fits like a glove at tight end 7, tight end 8, depending on if you want to include Zach Ertz there or not, which I assume you're including Zach Ertz ahead of TJ Hawkinson.
I do.
Okay. Because Cameron and I think have him at tight end 8 and you have him at tight end 7. So that makes a lot of sense. But I don't know. Is there anything you want to add to that? It seems too obvious that tight end 7 is the perfect spot for TJ Hawkinson.
I think we said it best. I mean, the first 6 tight ends we mentioned are going to be contributors in winning your league in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
But Hawkinson's the first tight end that is a very solid option, but he just misses out on that like contributor to a league winner.
Yeah.
Piece. He just misses out.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And part of it is now you start looking at wide receiver targets, right? And how that affects TJ Hawkinson. And those targets are far more similar than running back targets. Give that disclaimer right now, right? They bring in more target competition for him. So yeah, that's real. That's real. But look, top 7, top 8 options. So I think you can still be fine with him on your team, but it's after Hawk that you're all of a sudden kind of like, hey, we'll see. We'll see. Let's move on to the other primary pass catcher in this offense, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm shocked with how high I have Amon-Ra. I have him as a top 20 play. I have him as my wide receiver 18. Tyler, you have him at 21. This is where like we need Cameron back on the podcast because I need him to explain why he has Amon-Ra at wide receiver 30.
Yeah.
It seems really low to me. I have him statted out pretty much the same as his 2021 season. By the time you stretch that over 17 games, you get TJ Hawkinson back, you bring DJ Chark in, you get Jameson Williams, right? At that point, I feel like his projection probably just ends up being around the same for this next season. I don't know. All that to say, you have him borderline top 20. What's your confidence level in that?
I feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of those players that you take and you're like, I don't feel super great about it, but I feel like he really should be one of those players that you feel pretty certain about.
Yeah.
Because he's going to give volume. And I know that Jameson Williams is coming into town. They brought in DJ Chark. All those guys are complementary to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're not necessarily, obviously they're threats because their presence is there, but like, it's not like they're carbon copies of what Amon-Ra St. Brown does. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be, is the slot guy. Like he's the piece that they're going to move around. Maybe Jameson a little bit, but again, like they're not going to rush him back. So like I said, he's being looked at as I don't feel super great about him, but he really should kind of give you some sort of comfort and safety in selecting him.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm not excited to take Amon-Ra inside of the top 20, but I know he's not going to hurt me if I take him there. I think where you're getting him at drafts right now is probably fair value. I should have put his ADP down right now. I didn't. But if you want to find a quick go for it. Yeah, just one of those guys that he's a safe play. I don't know if he has the upside to win you your league this year, but I think could he be like a Brandon Cooks, more of a Brandon Cooks than a Darnell Mooney is, just with the safety. And like, you're not gonna like, I don't know. I'm not expecting Amon-Ra to have 4 straight 20+ point fantasy weeks. Like, I'm not expecting that. But like, I don't think it's unreasonable to think he can give you 12 every week.
I think the thing is with Amon-Ra St. Brown is that his ceiling is just not as high
Right.
as people would hope to be.
Yes, I would agree.
But the floor is relatively there. It really is. So it's one of those, like, if you want to stack up at running back, just like the mock draft we did. I don't know how long ago it was. I took 3 running
1.0.
backs.
Yep.
Yeah, I took 3 running backs, and I had Amon-Ra St. Brown fall to me in the 7th. I think maybe the 6th.
7th. It was the 7th because I was shocked how late you got him.
But he was my wide receiver too, and I looked at my team at that point and I said, I like that. I really like that.
Yep. Yeah, he'll be a piece that you can add in your drafts. He may not be your wide receiver 2, but if he's your wide receiver 3, I'd be thrilled with that. So, I'm going to make you pick. No explanation. Would you rather have DJ Chark or Jameson Williams on your redraft roster this year?
I'll go DJ Chark just because he's just a bigger target for Jared Goff. So maybe there's some red zone opportunity there because I just don't know how the Lions are going to use Jameson Williams.
Yeah, I as I wrote the question, I was leaning Jameson Williams, but if he's coming back second half of the season, rookie wide receivers need at least half a season to get acclimated to the league. I think I would rather just take Chark, but I don't want either on my team if I'm being perfectly honest. So
yeah, neither.
Think we can both agree Jared Goff, little to no fantasy value this year.
Stay away.
Sounds great. Let's move on to the Packers as we're coming up on 40 some minutes here. Aaron Rodgers, the man himself, not in our top 12 quarterbacks this year. All across the board.
Oh, I know. How dare us?
People probably think we're idiots. They do think we're idiots. Let's be real. When we posted our top 10 quarterbacks video on TikTok, everyone's like, you don't have the back-to-back MVP in there? I'm like, well, does the back-to-back MVP have Devontae Adams on his team anymore? Well, it doesn't matter. Aaron always makes it work. Okay, kid. Okay. All right. Quarterback 13 across the board for all of us. I don't think any of us regret it. Because when you lose the best wide receiver in football that you funnel 160 plus targets to every single season, and your next best dude is Allen Lazard, some CFS rookie, I shouldn't disrespect Christian Watson like that, but a CFS rookie out of North Dakota State. Those are your Sammy Watkins. Those are your best options.
Cobb.
Randall, the ghost of Randall Cobb. Robert Tonyan and his beautiful man bun. Like, those are your options after Devonta. I'm sorry. I don't get it. I don't get why people still love Aaron Rodgers this year. And here's the thing. I don't even think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a bad NFL quarterback this year. I don't think he's going to be bad. I think it's just, honestly, I like that many guys for fantasy more than Aaron Rodgers this year. You look at Joe Burrow or Aaron Rodgers. Who'd you rather have?
Burrow.
Matthew Stafford. Aaron Rodgers.
Stafford.
Dak Prescott.
Dak.
Russell Wilson. Going as quarterback 11 right now. Blows my mind. He's going after Aaron Rodgers.
Steal. Russ.
Yes. And the thing about all these teams is that they have far better wide receiver corps they're throwing the football to. I get Aaron can make up for that, but I'm sorry. You have Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy better than Allen Lazard? Yes.
Just a maybe just a little bit better.
Cooper Kupp better than Allen Lazard. CeeDee Lamb better than Allen Lazard. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd.
I'd rather have Tyler Boyd than Allen Lazard.
This is the point, people. Wrap your heads around this. Talent isn't everything in fantasy football. You also need the situation too. And Aaron Rodgers just doesn't have that this year. That is it. Aaron Rodgers is all-time great. All-time great. We are not denying greatness, but I'm sorry. I don't know how people can like view him as a top 10 lock this year when you just lost the best wide receiver in football. It just does not compute in my brain. I don't know how it computes in other people's. Like, I don't know what kind of math they're looking at. All right, Aaron Rodgers rant over. It's not even hometown bias. Like, I can't even say that. Like, I genuinely feel this way about Aaron Rodgers this year. He had 2 years of greatness after being awful for fantasy football for 2 years prior. Like, this, for him being at quarterback 13 isn't anything out of the ordinary, I don't think. Like, it shouldn't be something where you're like, because he just hasn't always been this top 5 like we've seen the past 2 years. I don't know. I need to get off this horse. I need to move on to these running backs now. I'm going to keep ranting about this all day. Aaron Jones. We love Aaron Jones. Finished as running back 11 last year. Running back 9 for both Cameron and I. Running back 8 for you, Tyler. He's currently going as the running back 12. Distasteful, honestly, if you ask me.
It's a steal.
Why do we love Aaron Jones this year? What's with our Aaron Jones love?
He's wide receiver 1 on Green Bay, honestly.
I mean, not actually. I don't think he actually will be, but like, he has the most trust with Aaron Rodgers. I think he'll be a big benefit of Devontae Adams leaving. I think some of those targets will funnel his way.
I think the rushing game is going to be, I mean, it's going to lead the way for him this year. And that's probably the other argument for Rodgers not being super high is that it's just going to be the run game this year. Like, that's just how it's going to be because you lost Devontae Adams and you replaced him with Allen Lazard.
Yeah.
So, look, Aaron Jones may not get a whole lot of goal line carries. Those may fall to A.J. Dillon, but the receiving numbers are what's going to keep Aaron Jones top 10 relevant this year.
100%. Is it unreasonable to think like 20 of Devontae Adams' 169 targets last season fall to Aaron Jones this year? We're talking about a guy who's seen 63 plus targets in each of the past 3 seasons. Been a top 12 running back in those seasons.
I may say 40.
This is exactly it. Let's do some simple math. MVS is gone too, by the way. His targets have to be redistributed. So if you're like, if there's only 110 targets to go around to Lazard and Watson and Watkins, well, no, you have MVS's targets. Lazard's already been on the team. He already saw 60 targets last year. Let's just do some simple math. I'm kind of sick of people not being willing to do the simple math. That's just where I'm at. I'm getting fed up on this podcast. There's so many things on here. I'm just like, why don't people get it? AJ Dillon.
With your dome piece.
Think with your dome piece. AJ Dillon. I love AJ Dillon this year. I think he's a great value this year. Running back 23 for me and running back 23 for Cameron. Cameron and I are like in sync on our rankings, except for Amon-Ra, the only one that we're a little bit distant. But like, we're in sync today. I appreciate this. Tyler, you have him at running back 27. You're a bit lower. Is there any reason for that? Or is there just that many handful of guys you like more? I don't think either answer is wrong. I think Dillon goes in this 30 to 20 range somewhere. It's just a matter of where. And I think he's closer to 20 than he is 30.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of lacking on the receiving numbers for AJ Dillon just because he did get more receiving work last year. So maybe that pushes him closer to 25. But like, here are the guys that would be ahead of him still for me. Breece Hall, Kareem Hunt, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell. Like, Dillon would be my top RB3. I'm not ready to put him into that RB2 conversation just yet.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think having him at borderline running back 2 is probably where I'm comfortable having him. I don't know if I want to actually roster him as my running back 2. Right. But if I can roster him as my running back 3, I am absolutely thrilled with that. I will take that 10 times out of 10 in all my drafts this year. I find myself wanting to draft AJ Dillon, but waiting just a smidge too long because of value and where I think he could actually go. So, no, 100% agree. Let's wrap out the Packers since we are coming up close to an hour here. Let's wrap out the Packers. You got to choose one: Lazard, Watson, or Sammy Watkins. Who are you going with? Who are you picking to have the best season out of those three?
I'll go Lazard.
I'm going Lazard as well.
Watson's gonna take a while to get acclimated. Watkins isn't even a guarantee to make the team. Let's just be real.
Right.
That contract he signed is not a guaranteed spot. So
yep.
I think if anything, maybe that should have been my hot take. Randall Cobb will finish as a wide receiver 2 on the Packers this year. That's what I should have gone with.
We'll put it in pencil. It's like a sub note to your hot take.
I mean the four most relevant Packer players in fantasy this year. Aaron Rodgers, because he's Aaron Rodgers. Yep. Even though he may not be super productive, he's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, and Robert Tonyan.
That's that. I agree. I'm not too invested in any other Packers players outside of that. All right. We could sit and talk Minnesota Vikings football for a long time, but I'm going to give us 7 minutes to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. I think we can do it, mostly because a lot of these guys are no-brainers. Okay, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 2 for Cameron and I, wide receiver 1 for you. What separates him from Cooper Kupp for you? Is it even a separation, or is it he fell 10 points ahead of Cooper Kupp for me, and that's it?
I've got him like 14 points ahead of Cooper Kupp.
Okay, so it's like 1 game worth of production.
Yeah,
it's like a fantasy point a week.
Actually, you know what? I'll summarize it like this: go check out our Twitter.
There it is. There it is.
Our pinned tweet is a thread that yours truly made, explaining why Cooper Kupp really is not likely to repeat what he did last year. And if that's the case, he won't finish wide receiver 1.
Yep.
I'm just hedging my bet that it's going to be Jefferson that finishes wide receiver 1. It could also be Jamar Chase. And I even threw in a dark horse in that thread.
I like the dark horse.
Stephon Diggs.
I
do
the dark
too.
Horse.
I kind of do too.
I like the dark horse. Look, third year is when we see the biggest leap from wide receivers. We've seen massive strides from Jefferson already. Now you get Kevin O'Connell in here. Not a run-first offense anymore. I agree. Go check out that thread on Twitter. We love Justin Jefferson this year. I have Cooper Kupp 3 points ahead of Justin Jefferson. He's that close being my wide receiver 1 this year too. Adam Thielen, we'll talk about the other wide receiver. Wide receiver 25 for Cameron and I. Again, we are just in sync. You have him at 27, not too far off. Look, he's going as the wide receiver 30 in fantasy drafts, and this is a guy before his injury last year, wide receiver 7, outscoring Jamar Chase. Think about that for a second. Been a top 12 wide receiver the past 3 years when healthy. Is there any possibility we're underrating Adam Thielen this year?
Maybe just a little bit, because he's really kind of solidified himself as a red zone guy, because he's hit double-digit touchdowns I don't remember what the stat is, but that kind of touchdown production is going to be utilized a ton this year.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I definitely agree.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, definitely agree. That's all.
I just think, I know everyone's going to be apprehensive because Robert Woods didn't, get off to the hottest start last year as a wide receiver 2 for the Rams. But the pace that he got on before tearing his ACL, he would have finished as a wide receiver 2. So,
yeah, I think it's appropriate if you can get him at the 25 range. I think that's about appropriate. I don't want to reach too much earlier than that, but I don't want to wait too much longer than that either. Mm-hmm. Dalvin Cook, running back 4 for me, running back 4 for Cameron, running back 5 for you. He shouldn't be drafted outside of the top 5 running backs. His ADP is running back 6. I've been able to get him at the back end of the first round in some mock drafts, which is absurd to me. I get there's injury concern. Misses only 2 games a year. Better than a McCaffrey who's been missing how much time over the past couple of years. it's just standard for these first round running backs. Okay. There's no reason he should be going outside of the top 5 running backs. There just isn't. He's elite when he's on the field. He should be top 5. Fair? We can just leave it at that.
Fair.
Kirk Cousins. QB 14 for me, QB 14 for Cameron. I am telling you, just Cameron, you're killing it in your rankings, man. By my standard. But Tyler, you have my quarterback 12. I actually really like this, honestly. Is there optimism for the fact that he's been a top 12 quarterback 6 of the past 7 years in fantasy? Now, if you didn't know that, quit hating on my boy Kirk. Or is it because they brought in Kevin O'Connell, who did wonders for Stafford? Or is the answer yes to that question?
I was going to say, what if I told you that the answer to that question is actually both?
It's actually yes.
It's actually yes.
Yeah. What specifically has you excited for Kirk this year with Kevin O'Connell? Because I think we can look at the history and say, well, yeah, it would make sense that he's there. But what about O'Connell excites you for Kirk this year?
I just think it's going to be much more creative in the passing game. And I know that Kirk does really well off of play action. That's kind of what the Rams did a little bit with Goff before going to Stafford. But I really do think O'Connell can kind of find a way to get Kirk out of that play action shell a little bit and, and really solidify him as one of the best pocket passers in the NFL.
I just look at what he did with Stafford last year, and I say, why can't he do that with Kirk? I get Kirk and Stafford aren't exactly the same quarterback, but I don't think our expectations are set for Kirk to be Stafford. But I think he can do wonders with Kirk. 2 good pocket passers.
I mean, the reality of it is this. Getting a coach like O'Connell is not just going to put maybe actually let me rephrase this. Zimmer being the head coach with Kubiak as the offensive coordinator, going to O'Connell is not going to necessarily improve Kirk. It's going to improve the situation around Kirk. It's going to put players in better situations and better open space for Kirk to rack up yards, rack up touchdowns. It's going to improve everybody. Maybe not directly in terms of play styles and stuff, but just getting people in more space and more open areas is going to benefit Kirk.
Definitely agree. I stepped away from the microphone for a second.
It was all good.
But I
things.
agree.
That's all you need.
It was all good things. I agree. Whatever Tyler said, I agree. That wraps out the NFC North. That wraps out another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas as well. Any final thoughts on the NFC North before we wrap out the episode?
Let me get real close to my mic for this one, okay?
Let's get real close.
Kirk Cousins is ahead of Aaron Rodgers in my rankings. And guess what? That's how it's going to finish.
I like that a lot. You like that. You like that.
Welcome to Fellas ASMR, where we like Kirk Cousins. We like it a lot.
We like it a lot. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. If you haven't already, go buy our draft guide. $5. Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. Get projections on over 200 players, 600 statted out projections because you get projections from myself, from Tyler, and from Cameron. 3 different people, 3 different projections. You can see where we have players for this upcoming year. That is something you do not want to miss. It's $5. It's $5. You can go without your iced grande caramel latte from Starbucks this week. We're talking to a bunch of dudes. I don't know. I enjoy myself a latte every once in a while, but that's not a weekly purchase for me. You don't need a pack of baseball cards this week. I know you're watching all those lives on TikTok of people breaking open football cards. You don't need that pack of football cards this week. You're not pulling anything slick. You can pull a W in your fantasy league if you go buy our draft guide, though.
Imagine
$5.
all the baseball cards you could buy if you win your fantasy football league.
That's exactly it. It's about being smart with your investment. $5 draft guide. Fantasy Football Fellas on Venmo. FF Fellas on both Cash App and PayPal. Head on over to the socials too. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube. We're posting content there pretty much daily. We're up 100 subscribers, which is big news for us. We've been making some moves over there. We're getting more active on YouTube. So if you're subscribed over here and watching, we appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in. And then on TikTok as well. Past 70,000 followers yesterday. 70,000.
We're past
71,500.
71,000.
We're at 71.5 right now. That's why I went to go put down my phone. I was posting on TikTok and my phone was almost dead. And I didn't want it to die while it was posting.
Good call.
So I had to put it on the charger. So yeah, go give us a follow over there too. We posting content every single day for you over there as well. Just two stooges being dudes tonight. I know Cameron wishes he could be with us. He will be back soon. If he's not back on Thursday, he will be back next week. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Three Stooges being dudes, Fantasy Football Fellas. Deuces.
Deuces.